Here's C.J. Stroud at the 47-yard line of Houston, ready to take a knee. He does. It's over. The Texans blow out the Chargers on Wild Card Weekend, 32-12, and they move on to the divisional round. What a playoff performance. 4 interceptions. The Texans winners. A game we will never forget.
Mark Vandermeer on the call. Texans 32, Chargers 12, and I will pile on with everybody else, including D'Amico Ryans after that game, where I say to you, Seth Payne, how about that bye week? How about that bye week? Yeah, man.
This was what a fun game. And even when the Texans were down and the game seemed like it was at its drunkest, and even when I had almost zero expectation of the Texans winning, there was a point there before what I'm going to call a designed fake fumble, where everything turned around, that I started to feel like, you know what, man, the way the defense is playing, because they took a couple punches earlier. They took a punch to the chin and then a punch to the nose on the first couple of possessions. Yeah. But I thought there was a chance that, man, maybe this will be one of those games where the offense doesn't do anything at all, but the Texans defense gets a couple of turnovers.
Yeah.
And it ended up delivering to a huge result. The offense showed up, and Justin Herbert's, he's never thrown more than a single interception in a game.
He's never thrown more than 2. Never thrown more than two in a game, yeah.
Somebody wrote it wrong in the Chronicle.
Yeah.
But this year he didn't throw more than a single interception in a game. He threw 3 interceptions all season long. He gets 4 interceptions. That was just that was awesome, man. That was so much fun. Eventually,
yeah,
it wasn't fun at first.
No,
it was a whole lot of fun eventually.
Well, it was fun, and I think like to me, okay, there's a lot to unpack here.
Do it in the next 90 seconds.
You said, I think it was after the Dolphins game in Week 15 where the offense was really bad. I mean, honestly, I know they won the game, and D'Amico was still trying to talk them up a little bit, like they did some good things, but the offense was not good in that game. But Derek Stingley had the 2 picks. The defense turned the Dolphins over 4 times, and I remember coming in the Monday afterwards, and you said it right out of the chute. You said, this might be the formula for this team. Like, if this team is going to make a run in the playoffs, the formula is probably going to be the defense making plays and setting the offense up. And to a degree, that's what this game was, except the offense finally showed up in the second half of this football game. The first drive of the game looked like the beginning of the Ravens game. The first drive for the Chargers in that game, I mean, they were just slicing and dicing going down the field. And the biggest thing the defense did early in this game was get 2 third-down stops. The Chargers didn't have a third down until they had a 3rd and 1 on the first drive, and Foley fought a couple to get in backfield and stop them. So it's a 4th and 3 instead of a 4th and 1. You know, like it's a no-brainer field goal attempt. Mechie turns the ball over on the first play from scrimmage offensively, and the Texans get a sack and a stop there. I thought early in the game holding them to 2 field goals, which stood until the game was out of reach, was absolutely huge. And kudos to and we'll get to this in a second, what triggered the offense. But I think, to me, like I come in this morning and I say, man, this was a deluxe version of the formula that you were talking about after that Dolphins game, because the offense did show up in this game. Yeah. They had over 400 yards of offense. And to me, like the emotional part of it coming in, I'm like, okay, I don't care how we got here. This is how I expected to feel after the wild card round of the playoffs, say at the beginning of the season. Like, with a little bit of confidence that you can go on the road and play with Kansas City on Saturday.
Right, you've got to you're going to have to try to turn the Chiefs over at some point. Yeah, and look, even if it hadn't ended up being a landslide victory like this, even if they hadn't picked off Justin Herbert 4 times, the really encouraging thing on a more like kind of substantial part of it was that, hey, the defense kept the offense in the game. The defense kept them in the game when it could have easily gone side. After that John Mechie fumble, I mean, it could have been disastrous. And the fact that they stood up in that moment and then just kept it a 6-0 game when it felt like it should have been 21-0.
Yeah.
That was really good. The other thing, multiple different players talked about Azeez Elshire's influence as a leader on this team. And I Will Andrew told you guys that, they were kind of talking about what kind of defense they wanted to be. going into this season. And as he said, we want to be the kind of defense that can take a punch and it doesn't affect you.
Yep.
You just keep fighting.
Yep.
And that's exactly what that was. That was just a gutsy effort by the entire team. Offensively, I also did like that, man, the offensive line, they had some rough moments, many of them similar to what we've seen this year, where they just can't pick up games, like all those kinds of things. But they counterbalanced it at least. They ran the hell out of the ball in the second half, not just with Joe Mixon heroics, but with actual blocking and actual lanes and holes and all of that. So there was a lot to hang here. This wasn't like, it doesn't feel like a flukish victory.
No, at all.
It feels like a crazy victory, but it doesn't feel flukish.
Because they made a lot of mistakes, too. I mean, if you had told me before the game, like I like doing that thing, Seth, where I said, if you just tell me 5 things about this game blindly, do I think they would have won the game? And if you had told me before the game that they would have fumbled on each of their first possessions of each half, the first play of the game offensively, and then Mixon fumbled in the red zone, if you had told me they would have fumbled on their first possessions of each half, given up an 86-yard touchdown pass, and had 80-plus yards in penalties, I would have said they probably lose this game. They won by 20. You know, that's a crazy. You're right. It was an absolutely crazy game. Now, we got to talk. And the last drive you're talking about when they ran the ball, they possessed the ball at the end of the game. We haven't seen her. The defense has been the one that's had to close out games at the end of the season. 14 plays, 74 yards. They held the ball for nearly 7 minutes and scored a touchdown at the end of it.
That's a big. You had a closeout.
Huge.
It was a sight for sore eyes.
Yeah.
And one that I can't remember if we had a closeout drive like that by the Texans offense at any point this year.
Well, the Colts game in week 1, that was it.
Well, that's right.
That's it.
So that part was really cool. And even on the Ladd McConkey one. It took the breath out of the stadium, obviously, for a little bit, but then you immediately counterpunched. But that play specifically, the weird thing about it was Kalen Bullock was in position to make a play.
Yeah, they were covered, yeah.
And Kalen Bullock is a guy that knows how to go up after the football. He kind of pulled what we saw last week where he's just kind of sitting, waiting for the ball to come down.
Oh, Yeast. Russ
Yeast.
Yeah.
He kind of pulled a Yeast.
Yeah.
And without realizing that there was Ladd McConkey, the guy you shouldn't lose track of.
Yeah.
So in hindsight with the victory, I look at it and I'm like, all right, you know what? They had it covered properly.
Yeah.
Kalen Bullock just kind of made a rookie mistake on it.
Yeah, on 3rd and 28. That was wild. But they win the game by 20. So, it is what it is. The play that flipped this game.
Thank you for remembering Yeast's name.
The play that flipped, number 25, the play that flipped this game, and might have flipped the postseason for C.J. Stroud. Texans down 6-0. It's 3rd and forever. This is at the beginning of a 99-yard drive. They spent 4 minutes jimmy-jacking around inside their own 25-yard line, getting penalties, running the ball. They were in a swamp.
Was it 10 yards in 10 plays?
It was something crazy like that.
It was absurd. It was nuts.
Titus had a tripping penalty that put it back. It was wild. So it's 3rd and 16, and they're inside their own.
After having been 2nd and 20 or 25.
Yeah, and they're inside their own 10-yard line, thereabouts, and this happens.
Stroud calls for the ball. And the ball goes through Stroud. He picks it up, scrambles out to the right side. Can he get rid of it? Airs it out downfield and caught at the 45-yard line and taken to the 50-yard line. X marks the spot. An amazing play for the Texans on 3rd and long.
It was undoubtedly one of the most, if not the most important plays of the game. If they go on to do more this postseason, beat the Chiefs, and then see whatever happens, it'll be looked back at as one of the most important plays, certainly of this whole season, and maybe in the history of the team if they go further than they've ever been. That play, as I said before, they were just swamping around in their own territory for 4 minutes. They went down in about a minute and scored a touchdown, got the ball back, and then scored a field goal. They scored 10 points in the last 2 minutes of the game after this play. And if you saw it, it was C.J. Stroud. The ball goes through his hand, so it was his fault. I said this in the postgame.
He said it afterwards.
Yeah,
he's checking the defense.
Well, let's hear from CJ's. Here's CJ's thoughts on that play.
Yeah, even if I made the play, I was kind of mad at myself for my eyes. I didn't look at the snap, so it just went straight through my hands. And so I'm trying to see the defense, and it went through my hands, and luckily it bounced right back up to me. And, I tried to just savor the play. Hutch did a good job. I trusted me, and, I trust him. So he kept on the move. And, that after we made the completion, I looked at the sideline. Everybody was turned up, so that turned me up because I was still kind of mad at myself. But, yeah, those are the type of plays that change momentum, and that's when, a team can, rally around plays like that. So, shout out to Hutch for making a great instinctual play, and, I just try to do my best to savor the play.
That play undoubtedly flipped the game, and it flipped C.J. Stroud because before that play, he was 9 for 16, 83 yards, a horrible interception, and a passer rating of just over 44. Then he had that play, big 34-yard catch. After that play, C.J. Stroud was 12 for 16 for 164 yards. He threw the touchdown to Nico Collins. His passer rating was nearly 130. He averaged 10.3 yards per attempt, which 8 is exceptional. He was at 10.3. He was using his legs after that. He had a 27-yard scramble on the next drive that felt like he was shot out of a cannon. This play, you cannot overstate what this play meant to this game.
I told you that sometimes as a lineman, I'm guessing this is frowned upon these days, but you don't feel right until you kind of take a knock in the noggin, like you headbutt somebody before the game or something just to try to get it going. It felt like it to put you into that. Yeah. It felt like that play put him in that mode. Yes. And it ended up being also, we talk about, it was 7 plays that they had taken to advance 10 yards, 11 yards. They started off at the 1. They ended up at the 12 after 7 plays. So because of that, though, you also gave the defense a break because the defense had been on the field forever in that half. And you're just feeling like at some point, man, they can't be out there without at some point the dam breaking. So it helped in that regard, too. It was almost like all the negatives turned into a positive on that play because of that. And you're right, with CJ running, CJ, and he also talked about, there was an opportunity earlier in that game where it looked like, boy, he could have run the ball. Mm-hmm. But I think sometimes with CJ, it's weird, and you see that with young quarterbacks sometimes now. They've gotten all this advice from these older guys their whole life about how, like, hey, be a pure passer, be a pure passer, be a pure passer. You don't have to be a... That NFL doesn't exist anymore. No. There are very, very few stationary dudes, man. Like, the game has changed to the point where when the easy yardage is there, nobody second guesses Pat Mahomes for running like he does. Yeah. It's part of the game. You got to just let it flow to you.
He had 2 huge runs in this game, CJ did. The 27-yarder that flipped the field position to go get 3. That run got them the 3 points. And then the scramble on third down that should have been a first down but set up 4th and 1, and then he sneaked it on the next play. C.J. Stroud was absolute from late in the second quarter on. That was 2023 C.J. 2024 C.J. let the ball go through his hands. 2023 C.J. picked it up and found Xavier Hutchinson. It was outstanding.
Or 2025 C.J.
Hopefully. Let's hope so, right?
Did they play? Was last week's game in 2025?
It was.
Well, he had a good game there, too.
He did, yeah, he did.
2025 CJ has been a different dude.
CJ 3.0, yeah.